Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderfall Gaming. I hope you are all doing well, staying safe and most of all fighting that war against the grey. Today we've got another 10 things I'd like to see wishlisting video. This one is at request of someone on one of the Facebook groups and it is for Flesh Eater Courts. Depraved, deluded monstrosities that stalk the shadows of the mortal realms. These are the Flesh Eater Courts. So, without further ado, let's get cracking into this quite flavorful faction narratively wise, and let's see what this can bring. These are 10 things I'd like to see from Flesh Eater Courts. First of all, my number one point is, I say this for a lot of factions, but I want a figurehead for the faction to have rules and be able to be played on the table. This is for a multitude of reasons. I know Flesh Eater Courts do have, and the name escapes me, and I could not for the life of me remember the name of the dude. If you can, please leave a comment down below with his name. But there is sort of like a grand ghoul king of the Flesh Eater Courts. I just can't remember his name. It's completely eluded me. I tried to search for it and could not find it. So once again, please leave it down below for me. However, I'd like to see this dude on the table. For me, seeing a character that can lead the force and act as a figurehead is a very important thing for all factions in Age of Sigmar to have. It gives you a direction, a major direction with the faction that you can run with and put into your own armies, and sort of steers the faction forwards in the future based upon these actions. Age of Sigmar is a living game, and by having figureheads in it where they can follow the main plot lines that Age of Sigmar is following, whatever that may be at the time, these lead figureheads can help steer the army in directions and give it a face in all this chaos that is Age of Sigmar. Point number two, I'd like to see actual models come out for the courtiers. There's all the different ones like the crypt flayers and the ghouls and all that, the courtiers, and you have to take a model out of a unit. I really am not a fan of this mechanic in how to build kits. You know, you have to take one dude out and then all of a sudden you got 19 ghouls and it's not the correct unit size that you need. I'd like to see actual models come out. Plus, I really like the direction they went with the Archregent model. That's a more newer model for Flesh Eater Courts. And I'd like to see what they could do with the Courtier models going forward. Point number three, and we continue on with new models I'd like to see, but that is most definitely I would like to see a plastic Varghulf. The current model is amazing, but the problem is he is getting a bit dated, and he's a little bit small for what he is supposed to represent, I feel, now. A new Varghulf model would really go a long way in making this thing look more imposing and seem more like it is supposed to in the narrative of the games. 4. I want to see something big, and whether this be, let's look at cannibalistic giants. So Flesh Eater Courts are cannibals that have gone so far down this depraved lifestyle that they've almost become undead in a way. They're not quite undead. Flesh Eater Courts are like a pseudo undead thing, and I think giants could go down that same way. Imagine these giant cannibalistic monstrosities, and yeah, Flesh Eater Court giants is something I want to see. And I know you could probably convert these up, like us knowing that the new giants are going to be able to be added into any army, but it's not the same as having it as part of your army. I'd really like to see something like that. Number 5, now, I looked at the, what they called the Shadespire or Warhammer Underworld's warbands, and I noticed that there are bat swarms in the Flesh Eater Court one. This would just be an easy addition of a cool screening unit, an objective sort of unit with a little bit of fast movement. That could be a cool addition to the Flesh Eater Courts. Perhaps it is bat swarms and maybe the fell bat models as well, added into the Flesh Eater Court range would really give the army just a little bit more, and just help bump up those numbers of units as well, because Flesh Eater Courts are a little bit limited on numbers of units. So to start with, let's start with point number 7, and these are all sort of going to flow into each other with the next few. I want to see them first of all update the ghoul kit, and potentially with an archer variant in there. So for those who don't know, with the narrative of the Flesh Eater Courts, they effectively sort of see themselves like a knightly order, and the ghouls as like peasants. For all intents and purposes, they are the spiritual successor to Bretonnia. For all the jokes that are made, they pretty much are. And they see themselves as these knights and these men-at-arms and stuff. So why not, if we've already got men-at-arms and that's the ghouls, why not make men-at-arms archers and give us some of the old Bretonnian archers? I think that would be cool. This sort of carries on into the next thing I want to, which is point number 6, which is the rules for Flesh-Eater Courts. I want to push into the delusions that they suffer from. So they see themselves as these knightly orders. Let's give them charge bonuses as if they had lances. Like, make them seem like they have lances and give them rules for lances and charging, even though they don't have lances, but they sure as believe they do. So give them rules to represent it. This would also be on things like the ghouls, like they think they've got shields and swords and shields and polearms and stuff like that. So let's give them rules as if they had shields. I think would be really interesting. Like, there's no shield on the model, but they line up and they pretend they have shields, and you know, whether it's some bones of the enemy strapped to their arm or something, could be quite a cool thing and really push into that whole we're deluded. We think that we are this thing that we're not. It's a cool thing to do, and I really would like to see more of the rules pushing into the fact that these dudes are deluded and really make that a big focus. Point number 9. So I keep thinking of like Bretonnian units that I like to see come back in Flesh-Eater Courts in some weird, obscure way. And I had the thought of, well, what about the Corpse Trebuchet? So what about the old field trebuchet, but in this time it flings like all the body parts and all the sinew and bones that the Flesh-Eater Courts haven't devoured into enemy lines. Like, just some horrific, massive, rotting limbs that the Flesh-Eater Courts have not devoured, and skulls and bits of their friends and faces and all this horrific stuff flung into enemy lines. It could be like a major bravery debuff ability, as well as some like damage and stuff. It was a cool idea I had, and I think it really lends itself to the Flesh-Eater Courts and gives them a good place to go going forward. So point number 9, and I want to talk about this one a little bit. So, as I've mentioned, they see themselves as these knightly orders, and at current they're a mercenary force, much like the Fire Slayers, who can ally with anyone. They're just not allowed to take the Ghoul King, the big leader models. What I think we could do with Flesh-Eater Courts is, because of the way they see themselves, is I think we could make them a true gold faction like giants. Now, what a gold faction is, for those who don't know, it's a term sort of brought over from Magic the Gathering, where 2 different coloured cards come together and they make what's called a gold card, because it can be used in multiple different things. So the idea would be Flesh-Eater Courts can be allied with a lot of different things. They can both have allies from a bunch of different things, and they can also be allies for a lot of different things, continuing on, but sort of flipping the other way. Mercenaries, allowing these guys to be the main army, and you'd have some Stormcast in there helping them, would be quite a cool aesthetic and an interesting sort of thing to have in the game. I don't know how you would regulate it and how you would make it balanced, and like if it is all factions that get them, or maybe it is just some like Stormcast can be an ally for Flesh-Eater Courts, and we add in new allies for Flesh-Eater Courts that are outside the Death Grand Allegiance. But it's just a cool thought, and I think it would work with this army. So my last point for today is point number 10. And once again, thinking of old Bretonnian units, what about the Grail Pilgrims and Grail Reliquary? So the way I envision this for Flesh-Eater Courts is you've got all your devoted little ghouls and stuff like that surrounding this sort of pack of bones, and maybe this lot of bones is something of a leader of their old empire. So imagine the Ghoul Kingdom, and it's fallen from what it was, and these are the bones of the king that they all turned on and ate, the king and the royal family or whatever. Some inspiring leader that used to be their leader and is now, leading the army. Well, no longer leading the army, but now a pile of bones that they sort of carry around and worship. It's just a cool idea, I think, and I'm not sure how you go about it, but whether it's a single model now, similar to like the Trial of St. Catherine model from 40k for the Sisters of Battle, or whether it is a unit like it used to be with the Grail Reliquary with just one big model and a bunch of other small dudes. But it's definitely something interesting to sort of look into, I think. But anyway, that's 10 things I personally would like to see for Flesh Eater Courts. I'd like to know what you would like to see for Flesh Eater Courts going forward. They're an interesting army, and I do think they're one of my favourite narratives of an army in Age of Sigmar. It's just such a cool thing, and I don't know if you could tell, I really want to push into that delusion sort of thing they've got going. But anyway, don't forget to leave some comments below of what you would like to see for Flesh Eater Courts, and don't forget also to leave a comment below for a faction you would like to see get done. But most of all, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you to everyone who supports on Patreon. You can help us out on Patreon and support the channel. It's Cinderful Gaming/Patreon. Also, don't forget to stay safe, everyone. Stay well and keep fighting that war against the Grey. I'll see you all later. Ciao for now.